So I'm a little late with this one. So if there's one thing that we can all agree on, 2021 kinda sucked. From a beer that's now out for blood, to people dropping $1 gazillion on f***ing JPEGs, to probably worst of all, I joined YouTube. Such a tragedy, I know. And with that, all we could really do is watch as the world quickly devolved into madness. However, if there's one thing that did keep us sane throughout this year, it's not touching grass and instead staying inside and playing video games all day. During this year, I, like many others, used video games as an escape from this world. In a time where all of us are isolated from each other, it allowed us to transfer ourselves to a world where we can just forget everything in life, and Lord knows, we all needed that. And with all this extra time on my hands, I have definitely played my share of games this year. Some of them good, and then there's Drakengard. But yeah, I just wanted to take some time to go through these games and give my honest and kinda bad takes on them. So in an effort to keep my intro short this time, here are the games I played in 2021. So what better way to start off this hell year than with Drakengard? Where do I even begin? I guess we can start with the story. Drakengard takes place in the world of Midgard during a war between two ruling factions, the Union and the Empire. It tells the story of Kaim, a prince who makes a pact with a red dragon. Together they work to bring down the Empire, which is currently controlled by an evil cult who worships cannibal babies. Yes, you heard me correctly. And eventually stop them from wreaking havoc upon the land. So the story is interesting. It isn't good or anything, it's just interesting. The main appeal to Drakengard's narrative and why people love it so much comes from the sheer absurdness of it. From killing kids to promoting healthy eating habits, Drakengard explores topics that no other game would even think about touching with a 10-foot pole. Again, that isn't to say the story is good. It has many issues, including most of the characters, with how crazy they were, just feeling one-dimensional. However, with how bizarre the storyline was, it made me push past the gameplay in order to see what insanity lied next. Oh, speaking of gameplay, it's awful. Just straight up awful. The battle system of Drakengard is just your basic hack and slash type of game, but made with a budget of $7. It just feels really slow and repetitive, and with some of the missions taking up to 40 minutes, the combat gets really old. There aren't any combos or proper dodging system or a camera that works. You just hit the X button, and then you cry. There are some aspects that can shake up the combat, although not by much. During outdoor sections, you'll be able to call the red dragon to take out large swarms of enemies. It helped to speed up some of the missions, but the dragon felt very heavy and hard to control. Side characters that you'll encounter along your journey can also aid you in battle. You got Leonard, a guy who lost his sight and now has a demonic fairy following him around. Oh, and also he likes kids. Alright, who's next? Ariosh, a woman who lost her child to the Empire, so now she goes around eating children. And Sarai, an actual child. Please send help. Before starting a mission, you can select one of these 3 characters who can be called 3 times per battle. And just saying, Ariosh is overpowered as hell and made this game just a little bit more bearable. But only with the sound off.
Where are my children?
You ate them all, shut up! So although the ground combat gets real old real fast, there are also flying sections that actually had some semblance of fun playing. During certain missions of the game, you will take control of the red dragon and engage in aerial combat. While the ground combat was unbearable to play, the aerial combat was a nice change of pace and actually kind of enjoyed it. So yeah, although Drakengard might be a bad game, yeah, I got nothing, it's a bad game, 2 out of 10. So moving on, we have Final Fantasy X. An actually good game. Being the 10th installment in this series, Final Fantasy X was ambitious for its time. It took the series in a new direction with the inclusion of 3D environments and voice acting, while also keeping to its roots. Final Fantasy X tells the story of Tidus, a famous blitzball player who wakes up from a very long 1,000-year slumber on the continent of Spira. There he meets up with many characters, including Yuna, who tells him that the continent of Spira has been terrorized by a giant whale named Sin, and she's on a journey to stop it. So Tidus teams up with Yuna, her guardians, and SeaWorld in order to collect all the Aeons to beat the crap out of this whale. The story in this game is absolutely incredible. With its great writing and voice cast, Final Fantasy X builds up a story that will force you to get attached to its world and its characters. Although there were some dumb and awkward moments, I still liked them as it gave me a break to just laugh at how silly it was. The inclusion of 3D environments for the first time in the series also helped to complement the story, allowing for tiny details to be showcased to help to build upon the world. Oh hey, look, I'm in the game! Ah! This is truly an amazing tale. Everything from the world building to the beautiful soundtrack to the compelling characters, all of it helps to create a tragic story that will leave you wanting more. The gameplay has also seen massive changes compared to the previous installments, straying away from the ATB system, thank God. Final Fantasy X goes for a more simpler turn-based system. There isn't really much to be said, it's your basic pick an action to do the thing system. But what makes the combat of 10 stand out from the rest is the sphere grid. Replacing a normal leveling system, the sphere grid allows you to move each character along a grid and assign abilities or stat upgrades to them. At first I found myself really confused, mostly because my dumbass skipped the tutorial. But after learning more about the grid, I found myself loving this system. It allowed me to fully customize each character and choose which purpose I wanted them to serve on my team. However, in order to do this, I did have to grind, which I found tedious. But I still had a ton of fun with the combat as a whole and even found some parts really challenging. Like seriously, if you don't grind or plan out your sphere grid paths, you will not make it past the final boss. I may have, but you know what, that's besides the point. There are still glaring flaws in this game, one of the majors being the linearity of it. Unlike with past games where you can traverse an open landscape, 10 goes for a more linear level design, although it was not as bad as other Final Fantasy games. Yeah, I'm calling you out, 13. I wish it would have just been a little bit more open. Another flaw is that for some strange reason, the cutscenes are still not skippable, even with the remaster. This problem becomes more apparent when facing harder bosses. Like, I just want to get past this boss. I don't want to keep crying at how emotional this cutscene is. Oh god! So yeah, just like any other game, Final Fantasy X has its flaws. But to anyone interested in playing, this is truly an unforgettable experience and I absolutely recommend it. Alright, let's go with a 10 out of 10. Or a Final Fantasy 10 out of 10. But although my jokes in Final Fantasy X are really good, the same however can't be said of its sequel. So at first I wasn't planning on playing Final Fantasy X too. I heard many fans talk about how it ruins the emotional impact of the first game and is all around just a bad game. However, I was quarantining and the only other thing for me to do is begin writing that best-selling novel idea I had, but I'm not doing that, so Final Fantasy X-2 it is. Taking place 2 years after the events of the first game, Yuna discovers a sphere that shows a man resembling one of her old companions who's just chilling at a Wendy's or something. Along with Riku and a new character Pain, the three girls form a sphere hunting group in order to find her lost companion while also keeping the rest of the sphere from stabbing each other. So the first thing that you'll notice when booting up the game is that there has been a massive tonal change. The dialogue is now light and funny and there are many fun and memorable moments. But unfortunately that's where the good ends, as 10-2 managed to miss the mark on many things that made the first one so great. Many of the characters, including the ones from the first game, just felt very bland this time around, which is really disappointing because the first game had some really interesting and well-developed characters. The main story also felt really bland, as most of the interesting details and story bits were locked behind side quests. This wouldn't be a problem for the fact that these quests are impossible to activate without looking up a guide. As for the gameplay, it's okay. 10-2 returns to the ATB system that was used in older Final Fantasy games, and I didn't like it. Listen, I'm not gonna sit here and call the ATB system bad or unplayable. This simply boils down to the combat system not being my cup of tea. I prefer a more basic turn-based system where I can strategize my next move, instead of frantically trying to come up with a strategy on the fly. I honestly wish it would have just stuck with and improved on the combat of the first game, but I will say they did add some really cool mechanics to the game, one of which being the dress sphere. The dress spheres act like a job system where Yuna can tape a gun to her dress and ta-da, she has a new job. What makes it interesting is that these can be changed mid-battle, allowing for many interesting battle strategies. There has also been one major improvement over the original that I feel needs to be mentioned, and that is the linearity of the first game is gone. They made the world more open by tossing Yuna off an airship and letting her do whatever the hell she wants. Seriously, you'll have access to the entire map at the start of the game. To be fair, it is still the same map as before, and going to the same locations can get repetitive, but just having this openness felt very nice and refreshing. So yeah, 10-2 is definitely one of those games where you either love it or you hate it. If you are a fan of the first game, I recommend giving this game a try. Who knows, you may end up loving it, but not me, I hated it, 5 out of 10. Alright, now it's time for probably my favorite game of the year, NieR Replicant version 1.2234, wait, hold on. 1.224 version 1.224749. Alright, you know what? It's screwed to 1.6. Fuck. Anyway, NieR Replicant version Numbers is a remake of a somewhat niche title that released over 10 years ago. From the scenery to the music to the voice acting, every aspect has been remade from the ground up to give this game the treatment that it deserved. One aspect that dramatically changed was the gameplay. So Yoko Tara's games have been notorious for not being fun. I've already expressed my feelings about Drakengard, and Drakengard 3 is more of a PowerPoint presentation than anything. The original NieR followed this trend with having a slow and repetitive battle system, but that all changed when Kavya got thrown into the trash and Platinum Games were brought in to save the day. Now, the combat of Replicant is nowhere near as flashy and action-packed as Automata was. However, it has greatly improved from the original. It's actually fun to play. One of my favorite parts of the battle system was surprisingly Weiss. So just like in Automata, on your journey you will have a floating companion who will annoy the shit out of you. However, this time there's a twist. Unlike with the pods in Automata, you can't just hold down the fire button for the duration of the battle due to Weiss having this bar. I actually quite like this because it added a little more strategy to the game. Will you use up the bar in regular attacks? Will you save it for a more powerful singular attack? Or will you set him on fire because he won't shut up? The possibilities are endless. The rest of the gameplay is enjoyable for the most part. It isn't anything to write home about, but you won't cry out of frustration, so there's that. But what you will be crying over is its beautiful yet tragic narrative. Taking place in the distant future, it tells the story of NieR, who lives in a quiet village along with his sister Yona, who has been diagnosed with a deadly black scroll disease. NieR takes on quests in pursuit of a cure for his sister's illness, while also fighting back against strange beasts known as Shades who ravage the land. At first, Replicant pretends to be a standard JRPG story. You run around, complete missions, and try to save your sister. But what slowly unravels is a story unlike any other. Replicant is truly a breathtaking experience that gets into many dark and twisted territories. And with how unforgiving this game can be, you will definitely find yourself crying at points. Take it from me, I haven't stopped! Along with everything else, the story has also seen massive changes. One of which being that they changed the protagonist from a middle-aged father to a younger brother. I really like this change because I found the brother-sister dynamic more compelling. And also some of the character interactions with Father NieR felt very unnatural.
Yes. You and I are friends now.
Yeah, that just feels wrong. Oh, and that reminds me, the characters in Replicant are phenomenal. I don't think I've ever been attached to a cast of characters this much. Each of them have great writing and development, and no matter how hard you try, you can't help but feel for them. My favorite character was Kaine, who is pretty aggressive, especially towards the book, but also has a soft side that can be seen many times throughout the game. Each of the voice actors also reprise their roles, and they're all fantastic. I mean, just listen to Laura Bailey's amazing performance as Kaine.
Vice! You
Oh wait, no, turn it off, turn it off! And can I just say, the soundtrack in NieR is beautiful. Jokes aside, just please listen to this music. These songs are sung by Emmy Evans in their famous Chaos language. What I love most about her music is that since there are no lyrics that can be understood, every player will interpret its meaning differently. I recommend giving this soundtrack a listen to. You know what? I recommend giving this entire game a try. Everything from the characters to the music creates a tale that is both unique and unforgettable. So yeah, if you own a system with this game, which is basically all of them, except for the toaster, do yourself a favor and give this game a shot. So yeah, a solid 10 out of 10. Alright, what's next? Oh yeah, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade Yuffie DLC. God, that's a mouthful. So one thing that I should know about me is that Final Fantasy VII Remake is one of my personal favorites. As someone who has never played the original— oh, shut up, I'll get to eventually. I found the gripping narrative and satisfying gameplay to be an incredible experience. So needless to say, I was leaping for joy when I found out that we'd be getting extra content for this game. And after spending hours after launch trying to figure out how to upgrade to the Intergrade version— yes, I'm still annoyed about how tedious it was— I got my hands on it, and it was very good. The gameplay is pretty much the same as the base game, but this time you take control of Yuffie. Just like every other character, Yuffie has her own playstyle that makes her unique. Her main weapon is the shuriken that you can just toss at any time and pray that it lands somewhere. What the hell? But yeah, although she wasn't my favorite playable character, I did find Yuffie's playstyle very enjoyable. You'll also have a companion traveling around with you named Sonon. Unfortunately, you won't be able to take control of him in battle, but it's not like he's just sitting there with his thumb up his mouth. He does have a purpose. One way you can put this man to use is through the new Synergy mode, where Yuffie and Sonon can team up to perform attacks together. I found this mode fun at first. However, after using it for a while, it just turns to them belly flopping into the floor.
drop it.
Other than that, nothing major was added, but the original combat was already really fun, so hey, don't fix what ain't broken. As for the story, it takes place during the events of the main game with Yuffie as the protagonist. She, along with Sonon, are tasked with sneaking into the Shinra headquarters in order to steal a powerful materia. The story is very short, only spanning across 2 chapters and mostly serves to set up Yuffie's character for part 2. But with what little we got, I found myself enjoying the story and falling in love with the new characters, especially Yuffie and Sonon. Some of the characters from the Deep Ground, such as Nero and Weiss, also make a return. To be honest, I had no idea who these people are, but hey, if you're one of the 5 people who play Dirge of Cerberus, this will be right up your alley. So yeah, although this DLC was not needed, I'm glad that we got it. The enjoyable story, fun-loving characters, along with the fluent and satisfying gameplay all come together to give us a taste of what's in store for part 2. And I don't know about you, but after this expansion, I am very excited about what the future holds. 8 out of 10. Alright, I was debating on whether or not to include the next game in this video. However, since it has consumed my life since release, it needs to be mentioned. So one night my father sat me down and he said, "Son, there are 3 things that are inevitable in life: taxes, death, and every franchise becoming a fucking mobile game." So after the surprising yet deserving success of NieR Automata, it was only a matter of time before the series made its way to the mobile market. And lo and behold, it did, with NieR Reincarnation being another one of Square Enix's attempts to squeeze every single penny out of you. The story takes place in a mysterious place called the Cage. There, a young girl named Fia wakes up, and with the help of a floating blanket named Mama, she makes her way through the cage in order to reclaim what was lost from her. The story is pretty basic compared to the other NieR games, but there is one twist that makes it more unique. In all of Yoko Taro's games, each obtainable weapon had its own story attached to it. Reincarnation takes this idea a step further and lets you actually experience each weapon's tale. I really like this method of storytelling and found myself emotionally affected by each of these grim tales. Just like other NieR games, you'll definitely find yourself crying, but now on the go! However, one major problem I did have was that it was incredibly difficult to get attached to these characters when most of them aren't even named in their respective stories. Alright, now on to gameplay. But first, I just wanted to say that this game looks beautiful for a mobile game. Like seriously, the fact that my phone doesn't explode while running this game is a miracle. And you'll be admiring this beauty a lot because during combat there really isn't anything else to do. NieR Reincarnation uses an auto battle system where each character will use standard attacks without any player input. There are some areas where the player can have some control, such as deciding when to use specials. But other than that, it's all automatic. At first I found this system really boring, as all I could do is watch as my units took out enemies without any problems. But as the difficulty rose, I found myself more engaged in the battle system as I had the time when to use my specials. But the difficulty is another major problem. As you progress the main story, the difficulty rises to the point where many players, including myself, have been prevented from viewing the rest of the narrative. This is made even worse through the slow level progression and small character pull rates in the gacha. I wish they had just eased back on the difficulty to allow players who are just here for the story to enjoy it, while hardcore fans can enjoy the challenging side content. But I still had a ton of fun fighting with both old and new characters. This game is still new, so there is plenty of time for them to change and improve on the model they have now. But for right now, let's go with a 6 out of 10. Oh, and speaking of mobile games, I also played Fruit Ninja again, and it's just as fun as I remembered. It managed to pull off such a weird Wait, what am I doing here? Ah! 0 out of 10. But you know it's not a 0 out of 10, or won't try to kill me. Final Fantasy IX. Look out, Iko's got a gun! So Final Fantasy IX takes place in Gaia, a world that has been plagued by a bloody war between the nations. It tells the story of Zidane, a heroic thief that meets up with a princess named Garnet after a very smooth and stealthy kidnapping. Garnet informs Zidane that her mother is responsible for the war breaking out, so they, along with their band of annoying theater kids, travel across Gaia in order to bring an end to this brutal war. So yeah, the story of this game is really good. Although on the surface it may seem like a charming game and even have many heartwarming moments, Final Fantasy IX is surprisingly one of the more darker Final Fantasy games. Touching on themes such as war and coming to terms with your own mortality, I found myself enjoying the story a lot, but if there's one thing that made the story even better, it has to be Final Fantasy IX's vibrant cast of characters. Throughout the story, you'll meet up with many characters who each have their own motives and personalities that you'll fall in love with. My favorite character in this game has got to be Quina. Their entire character is just them trying to get food and even go to some extreme measures in order to get it. So yeah, I think we can all relate to Quina. The characters are also made even better with the new active time events, which are basically optional cutscenes that take place in a different location. I love this as it gave me an opportunity to see how each character is reacting to the events that just unfolded. Also, the gameplay, similar to previous installments, uses the ATB system, and I still don't like it. Again, this isn't to say the system is bad. I just don't find this combat system particularly enjoyable. However, I will say that I did like the ATB system better in this game than in 10-2, mostly because it felt slower and my brain can't function if it goes too fast. But one thing I did love about the battle system is that each character had their own abilities and playstyle. For example, Quina can munch on certain enemies and obtain their magics that they can later use in battle. It helped to make each character feel more unique, and I found myself constantly switching out to try each character's playstyle. I do wish there was an option to switch out characters just like in 10 instead of having to go all the way back to a save point. But yeah, even though I have some gripes with the gameplay, this is still an incredible game. From the excellent story, great soundtrack, and lovable cast of characters, this is a wonderful experience and I definitely recommend giving it a try. So yeah, let's give this a 9 out of 10. Or a Final Fantasy 9 out of... Oh wait, no, I already made that joke. Oh god, this is awkward. Alright, let's just move on. So, Life is Strange True Colors. It's great. Being the third installment in this series, True Colors will bring a new and likable cast of characters, a great story, and a fantastic soundtrack. Oh, are you kidding me? So Life is Strange True Colors takes place in the beautiful town of Haven Springs. It tells the story of Alex Chen, who has just moved to this quiet town to live and reconnect with her brother Gabe. But unfortunately, that doesn't last long because Gabe dies. And after this unfortunate event, Alex must solve the mystery of who's responsible for his death. Just like in past games, True Colors continues the same choice-based system, where dialogue options can be chosen that will make changes to the story, character relationships, and the environment. I will say that the dialogue options in this game did not have the same emotional impact as the first game. I think the most challenging one was having to remind an old lady that her brain was being fried. Also, the story will mostly stay the same, as no matter what choices you make, every player will get the same ending. But although some of these decisions can still be stressful, fear not, because you'll also be aided by Alex's supernatural powers, granting her the ability to read people's emotions and even hear some of their thoughts. It was really cool seeing how I got to see a different perspective that ended up being very useful in solving the mystery of Gabe's death. Another aspect from the first game that makes a return is there being a central location that you'll keep coming back to over the course of the game and watch as it evolves. Haven Springs is such a gorgeous town with many interesting details and locations to explore. I found myself getting lost for hours searching every nook and cranny for any secrets I could find. The characters in this town also help to bring life to it, each of them having their own personalities that make them all enjoyable. And then there's Mac. So yeah, Haven Springs and the characters are all fantastic, with each of the chapters having some of the best writing we've seen in this series. I think my favorite episode had to be the third one, where the entire town partakes in a LARP. It was really cool how they infused RPG elements and allowed you to choose how you wanted to play. So yeah, True Colors is definitely a great addition to the Life is Strange franchise, with great writing, a beautiful setting, and interesting characters. If you are a fan of this series, this game is absolutely worth your time. 8 out of 10. And now, for the final game of the year, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. Nope, get out of here. So Game Freak is no stranger when it comes to remaking their old games. Instead of making ports, Game Freak likes to put a little bit more effort into improving on the originals and making it more visually appealing. This can be seen with Fire Red and Leaf Green, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and yeah, that's kind of it. So it was no surprise when the Pokemon Company announced that the next game to receive a remake was Diamond and Pearl. It was a remake that everyone, including myself, wanted a remake of so they can explore the beautiful region of Sinnoh and relive their childhood once more. And after 8 long years of listening to obnoxious Generation 4 fans, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl had a lot to prove. So was Game Freak able to pull it off? It's complicated. So the main selling point in this game is that it's a faithful remake. Everything from the trainers to the environments to even some of the glitches have been remade to keep the same old feeling as the originals, but now with a new style. But the problem with creating a faithful remake is that the original games were kind of bad. The only reason why fans, including myself, have such fond memories of this game is because Platinum fixed a lot of these issues, including weird level scaling, awkward pacing, and the fact that there are only 2 fire-type Pokemon. God, what the hell were they thinking? Although I did like these games, and I promise I will get to the good in a second, I felt as though this remake did not fix the glaring flaws that the originals had, which is one of the main purposes of a remake. It even added many more problems, one of the majors being the EXP share. In the past 2 games, the EXP share was made so that it would share experience points throughout the entire team and you couldn't turn it off. It worked in those games because the level progression was designed with this in mind, but with keeping the same Pokemon levels in this game, I found myself constantly over-leveled, even when I was trying to avoid most of the trainers, which was not easy, let me tell you. Oh, what the fuck? Alright, now on to the good before a Pokemon fan screams at me in the comment section. So what was good in this game? A lot, actually. First, they brought back following Pokemon, and I loved it. I don't know, something about having your Pokemon follow you on your journey just allows you to get more attached to them. It was annoying, though, when slower Pokemon on my team trailed behind me. Like, pick up the pace, Togepi, we have a world to save! There has also been the inclusion of the Grand Underground. Here you will be able to travel across from room to room and catch Pokemon that you weren't able to get in the original game. This also gives you the chance to catch a fire-type Pokemon that isn't just a horse on fire. While I didn't know that the Underground was a thing in the original, I found myself constantly traveling to the Grand Underground to see what I could find. And the Elite Four. Oh lord, the Elite Four. Before the release of these games, I was honestly scared that they would make the road to becoming a champion a cakewalk. But no, they did not. This section is absolutely brutal, and I found myself raging and crying just like when I was a kid. And I don't know about you, but that's pretty faithful. So although Brilliant Diamond and the other ones suffer from many flaws, there is still a lot of enjoyment to be found throughout. If you are a fan of the original Diamond and Pearl, I recommend picking it up so you too can relive this experience. 7 out of 10. And that pretty much wraps up this video. Not quite, because now it's time for our awards show. Yeah, you all thought you were done with me. You're not getting rid of this dragon fruit that easily. So let's get this thing started. Hello everyone, and thank you for coming. I'd make a joke about my arms being tired, but I don't have any. Thank you. Wasn't that funny? So now on to the awards. In 3rd place, we have Final Fantasy IX. In 2nd place, we have Final Fantasy X. And the winner of the Intertitulator Awards is NieR Replicant! Oh, by the way, there are no physical trophies. However, the winners will receive an NFT of it. So what games did you play in 2021? Did you love them? Did you hate them? Let me know in the comment section down below. Leave a like, subscribe, bell, you all know the drill. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a beautiful day.